Hello, welcome back to the channel. I have a video for you today talking about what the agenda here is. I want to bring up a couple things first. So I want to bring up this tweet here from Gold Telegraph. During the 1930s, many banks failed in the United States. In total, it is estimated that over 9,000 banks failed during this period, with most of these failures occurring in the early years of the Great Depression between 1930 and 1933. In 2008, we saw all the big banks receive a bailout from the taxpayer. Today, the United States' 16th largest bank has collapsed, and other regional banks are watching valuations plummet. While the Federal Reserve's rate hikes have been motivated by a desire to address inflationary pressures, this has helped cause the big banks in the United States to be sitting on $620 billion in unrealized losses. Why? Banks purchased a lot of treasuries and bonds when rates were at zero. Coincidentally, central banks around the world are now facing significant losses, which will fall on to the taxpayer, of course. Both Goldman and Barclays say rate hikes are off the table for March. When the entire economy is built on cheap money, the blocks are fragile, and with every rate hike, you are pulling at them. Eventually, things begin to shake. This is all happening as more countries seek to trade in local currencies. What is going to happen next? That is a very good question. Okay, so this is what I want to get into. Yellen confirms that there's an unlimited FDIC insurance policy for all deposits at big banks, but not at small and regional banks. There will be a run on smaller banks at the first sign of recession as depositors over $250,000 scramble to get their money somewhere that will receive a bailout. Okay, so listen to this.
Start with some of the banking issues we're dealing with on it. Will the deposits in every community bank in Oklahoma, regardless of their size, be fully insured now? Are they fully recovered? Every bank, every community bank in Oklahoma, regardless of the size of the deposit, will they get the same treatment that SVBP just got or Signature Bank just got?
A bank only gets that treatment if a majority of the FDIC board, a supermajority of the Fed board, and I, in consultation with the president, determine that the failure to protect uninsured depositors would create systemic risk and significant economic and financial consequences.
So if they decide that they're too big to fail.
So what is your plan?
We made that determination.
Right. So what is your plan to keep large depositors from moving their funds out of community banks into the big banks? We have seen the mergers of banks over the past decade. I'm concerned you're about to accelerate that by encouraging anyone who has a large deposit in a community bank to say, we're not going to make you whole, but if you go to one of our preferred banks, we will make you whole at that point.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, that's certainly not something that we're encouraging.
That is happening right now.
How is it not something you're encouraging? You're incentivizing it. She knows that. She just likes to lie.
That is happening because depositors are concerned about the bank failures that have happened and whether or not other banks could also
No,
fail.
it's happening
And
because you're fully insured no matter what the amount is if you're in a big bank. You're not fully insured if you're in a community bank.
Well,
Right.
you're not fully insured. And
You were at Signature, and it just barely met that threshold. You were at Signature.
well, we felt that there was a serious risk of contagion that could have brought down
Really?
and triggered runs on many banks. And that's something, given that our judgment
But you're triggering one now. You're triggering a bank run on small banks. Hello?
is that the banking system overall is safe and sound. Depositors should have confidence in the system, and we took these actions.
So there's a
to
special
discourage
assessment that's been done
contagion.
on community banks in my state and all banks across the country. Was there any discussion that that special assessment would only apply to the larger banks, or was it always assumed the special assessment would cover every bank, including rural banks in my state?
I think I'm not certain what the rules are around that. That's for the FDIC to determine.
It has been reported publicly that SVB had a large number of Chinese investors that are there, including some that were companies directly connected to the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah.
Will those individuals, companies, entities?
Firstino, remember? Firstino American Bank, that was their little sister company or their little sister bank with Silicon Valley Bank. They had a joint ventureship with a Chinese state-owned entity. Yeah, it's doing fine.
And investors that are Chinese investors
Apparently.
be made whole based on assessments in my banks in Oklahoma. So what I'm asking is, will my banks in Oklahoma pay a special assessment to be able to make Chinese investors whole from Silicon Valley Bank?
Wow.
Uninsured investors will be made whole in that bank, and I suppose that could include foreign depositors, but I don't
Wow. Did you hear how she caught that? Interesting. I think she was going to say something else. Woo.
believe there's any legal basis to discriminate among uninsured.
I get it, but I'm just saying my community banks are going to pay this additional fee. It is always fascinating to me as well, the conversation that taxpayers are being made whole in this, that taxpayers are not going to have any kind of consequence on this. I'm sure my bankers are going to be very excited to know they no longer pay taxes.
It's not only that, though. All of these costs are going to be passed on to the taxpayer. Everybody knows that. Okay, so what I want to show here is a graphic. This graphic shows the consolidation of banks beginning in 1990 up until 2009. You can see how, I think the number, I don't think this is all of them, but the number was something like 34 different banks were consolidated into just 4 mega banks. They are creating monopolies. So you have Citigroup, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo. All of these banks here, all of them got consolidated into the 4 big banks. So, of course, this creates monopolies, and it's crazy. It's just centralizing more wealth and power and taking banks away from small banks away. So you won't even have the choice to bank with somebody in your local area, which I think is crazy. It's disgusting. This is not just happening in America, though, either. This is between 1996 and 2016. This is Greek bank consolidation over 20 years, and it's the same thing. You've got a bunch of banks that over time get consolidated into 4 mega banks and conglomerates, monopolies, whatever you want to call it. And it was interesting because it reminded me of what happened with how the railroad monopolies were created. Same process here and same number, just 4 big ones. So I just think that's crazy. Okay, I want to play this clip because I thought this was very, very, very interesting. I hope everybody listens carefully.
Look, we have the worst revival of an economy since the Great Depression. And believe me, we're in a bubble right now. And the only thing that looks good is the stock market. But if you raise interest rates even a little bit, that's going to come crashing down. We are in a...
I'm sorry, there might have been an echo there. Let me start it again.
We have the worst revival of an economy since the Great Depression. And believe me, we're in a bubble right now. And the only thing that looks good is the stock market. But if you raise interest rates.
So this is a flashback to the 2016 time window, and what Trump was saying then, which I find very interesting, is the same thing that I was saying, is that you have everything was a bubble. You know, you have these different tech, real estate, you have these different bubbles, and they all eventually are going to have to collapse. You know, it's sort of like an everything bubble.
It's even a little bit, that's going to come crashing down.
And so, yeah, I want to replay that. I'm sorry.
We have the worst revival of an economy since the Great Depression.
True.
And believe me, we're in a bubble right now. And the only thing that looks good is the stock market. But if you raise interest rates even a little bit, that's going to come crashing down.
That's true.
We are in a big, fat, ugly bubble, and we better be awfully careful. And we have a Fed that's doing political things. This Janet Yellen of the Fed.
Oh, Janet Yellen called out.
The Fed is doing political by keeping the interest rates at this level. And believe me, the day Obama goes off and he leaves and he goes out to the golf course for the rest of his life to play golf, when they raise interest rates, you're going to see some very bad things happen because the Fed is not doing their job.
Yeah, and so what happened as the Fed started to raise interest rates to try to tame inflation? What do we see? Banks can just become insolvent like that, almost overnight.
The Fed is being more political than Secretary Clinton.
Oof. Okay, so let's go back here. There are some other things I wanted to cover. Small banks have borrowed $164 billion from the Federal Reserve in the last few weeks. The prior record high was $111 billion in 2008. That's not good. We just see more and more sort of, I don't know how you want to describe it, just kind of like reflections of things that we saw in 2008, prior to the 2008 financial crisis. I think this is, for the most part, true. Keep in mind, guys, I'm certainly not an expert. I am not a financial advisor. I don't claim to be. I don't give financial advice. I just look at things and try to give my interpretation, my opinion on it. They are consolidating the financial system by creating central bank digital currencies, making the big banks even bigger and creeping into digital finance via regulation. Many people still don't understand this, but eventually they will. So what is this talking about? I think this is very interesting. I did a 40-minute long deep dive into CBDC, central bank digital currencies, because I think that this is all part of the Great Reset agenda. I think that part of it is crashing the financial system, creating these big banks, and they've also created a new, I don't know if you could call it new, I'm sure they've been working on it for a while, but they're newly introducing it's a Federal Reserve digital payment system, Fed digital payment system, to launch in July. I think this is something that has been on the agenda for a while. So I'm going to include a link in the video description to the video I did on the CBDCs, because this is something that is happening whether you like it or not. And look, we might not see it rolled out right now, but it's happening. There's a website that tracks every single nation in the world and what the status is of their rolling out the CBDCs. And you can see, look how many have already adopted a CBDC or are in the process of rolling it out. You would be surprised. It's happening all over the world. And I think that that's part of the Great Reset. That's part of the school. It's part of the agenda. And this is absolutely correct. Okay, so let's move on. I thought this was interesting. A big fire in the center of English Loughborough, I'm probably butchering that name, the building of HSBC, which recently bought the British division of the bankrupt Silicon Valley Bank. So I'd like to know what you guys think of that. This is the article talking about the Fed digital payment system that's going to launch. It's going to be called Fed Now. The Federal Reserve's digital payment system will debut in July. The system will allow bill payments, money transfers, and other consumer activities to move more rapidly and at a lower cost. Fed Now, as it will be known, will create a quote leading edge payments system that is resilient, adaptive, and accessible, said Richmond Fed President Tom Barkin, who is the program's executive sponsor. The system will allow bill payments, money transfers such as paychecks and disbursements from the government, ding ding, as well as a host of other consumer activities to move more rapidly and at lower cost according to the program's goals. So this is all very disturbing in my opinion. I think that for many people, there's still a lot of confusion about what's going on right now with the financial system, with the current banking crisis. I hope you guys watch the video I put out yesterday. It's called Ode to the Bankers. What I did in that video is I went back to 2008 and I gathered clips that I thought were relevant of things that were happening that we're seeing happening again now. So go watch that. I chose those clips for a reason, and that video that I put together, it's only it's less than 6 minutes long in total. It's very short. Go watch it. I thought it was interesting. But yeah, this week, I don't even know if it can get any crazier this weekend, but it is what it is. We truly do live in a society. I hope you guys have a good day.